Last week, I ended the sermon with these words from Robert Frost's poem, "The Road Not Taken." Two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. Each day brings many choices from the moment we wake up. Think about it. What is the first thing that you do each morning? Is it a habit formed over many years? What is the underlying purpose of what you do? Was it formed out of duty, desire, gratitude, faith? However it came to be, it began with a choice and was strengthened through making the same choice over and over again. And each day we make hundreds and thousands of choices, and there are so many that it is often overwhelming. So we take measures to winnow down the choices. We do the same thing over and over again to keep it tight. As Jesus moves deeper into his ministry, he has been winnowing down the crowds who were following him as he taught on being the bread of life. And today, the winnowing continues as he again speaks of his eating his flesh and drinking his blood. The idea is too much for many. They leave. His teaching is just too hard. To eat flesh smacks of cannibalism, and to drink blood goes against Jewish purity laws, where blood is considered to be the life force of a creature. He counters their disbelief with, "It is the spirit that gives life. The flesh is useless. The words that I have spoken are spirit and life." Jesus was about word and action grounded in one choice, choosing God above all else. And now Jesus turns to the 12, the devoted few who remain with him, and asks, "Do you also want to go away?" Simon Peter responds, "To whom can we go? You have the words of eternal life." The spoken word. Jesus speaks the word, and it is the word that brings eternal life. As we gather hearing word and taking in sacrament, we meet him in friend and stranger. But it is time. It is time for his followers to choose, to make one choice that will forever inform their words and actions as long as they live. To choose life, to choose God, is the first and foremost choice we make, and from it all others flow. Every day we make our choice over and over again in our words, actions, who we attend to, how we manage our resources and spend money, with whom we spend our time, how we work, and how we play. Have you made a choice that is life-giving to others, to yourself? Does your choice inspire, strengthen, or nurture another's faith? The early Christians lived their faith with an immediacy and sense of urgency that was brought on by the Roman persecutions of the time. They chose to be Christians, to follow this man Jesus. In 177, Christians were martyred in Lyon, France. The historian Eusebius captured their stories. And one of the most famous martyrs of Lyon is Saint Blandina, a 15-year-old slave girl taken into captivity along with her master. Other Christians feared for her, as she was considered frail. Yet she stood firm in her faith. She was filled with such power, this is a quote, that those who took turns in subjecting her to every kind of torture from morning to night were exhausted by their efforts and confessed themselves beaten. They could think of nothing else to do to her. They were amazed that she was still breathing, for her whole body was mangled and her wounds gaped. To them it seemed she grew in strength as she proclaimed her faith in uttering the words, "I am a Christian. We do nothing to be ashamed of," end quote. The stories of the martyrs are incredible, even sensational, yet they are true. They speak of unwavering faith in the choice of following Jesus in the face of brutality. There is a more modern story of a gentleman who served in World War II. His name was Desmond Doss. He was a conscientious objector. He felt called to enlist in the military to serve his country. But he stood firm in a faith that called him not to carry a gun, not to be a warrior, not to take a life. He enlisted with the thought he would serve in the medical corps so he could save lives. He could serve his country and go on the battlefield to pull people off, but he would never lift a gun nor take a life. He was ostracized, challenged, beaten by the men in his company and by the higher-ups. They tried everything to wash him out, to bring him up on a Section 8, to declare him crazy. They brought him to trial, and in the end, he served. He served as a medic on Hacksaw Ridge. It was a brutal battle. When his company arrived, they had to climb up a steep cliff on a rope ladder to the top of a ridge, then engage with the Japanese, who seemed to just keep coming. His company fought fearlessly. He raced from one man to the next, triaging their wounds, carrying them to safety, putting their lives first, surprising them with his faith, courage, and devotion. They fought for 2 days, then they were ordered to withdraw. It was the end of the day and growing dark. He was the last man on the ridge. He prayed, "What do you want me to do? I don't know what you want me to do." And he gets up and he runs back on the battlefield. He starts saving man after man left on the battlefield to die. He carries each one to the edge of the cliff, makes a rope harness, and lowers them down, one by one, throughout the night, all by himself. Now, 2 men and a jeep had been left at the bottom of the cliff for stragglers. By morning, a ward was full of almost 100 people. After lowering each man down, Desmond would say, "Just one more, God. Let me save one more." And finally, the Japanese were coming straight at him. He was at the edge of the cliff, and he had no choice but to put the harness around the man he had and himself and push off. The next day was a Saturday. Desmond was a Seventh-day Adventist. Saturday was his Sabbath. And he had told his commanders that he wouldn't carry a gun and he did not want to go into battle on a Saturday. The company is ordered back to the ridge to fight. His commanding officer comes to him. Because of his faith, his perseverance kindled faith, awe, and belief in those around him. He gave them strength. And acknowledging the next day would be his Sabbath, his commanding officer simply says, "These men have to go back up there none of them have an ounce of the faith that you have. And they won't go back up there without you. The next morning, at the bottom of the cliff, the commanding officer is being yelled at over the field radio. Why haven't you moved? What are you waiting for? We're waiting for Doss to finish praying. Then we'll go. When he finishes, they go, and they succeed in taking Hacksaw Ridge. It was a moment of victory, a moment of strength based on one man's choice. It was a moment of faith, a moment when one person's faith enriched and strengthened everyone around him. He chose God first and foremost in his life. He chose walking the path of peace. In his choice, he put on the belt of truth, and he held fast to that truth. He was covered with the breastplate of righteousness, close to God, and put on the helmet of salvation. He walked in the shoes of peace. He took up the sword of the Spirit, the spoken word, and was protected by the shield of faith. He stood firm. It was one choice he made over and over again. One choice that made all the difference. In one battle, at one moment, in a particular time in this world. One man at a time. What choice will you make? It's only one choice. Will you choose to walk the path of life with Jesus? And in your choosing, choose God over and over again, striving to stand firm, making the difference only you can make. One choice, one action, one word at a time. It's your choice. Two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference.